There's one thing I can tell you. This video is not any way going to replace the service already provided to you by Happy Cow or other vegan restaurant review websites. So this is the funny thing about the internet. Certain types of information become meaningless to share or regurgitate because I already know in way less time than it takes you to watch this video, you can click on somebody else's website and get an overview of photographs, the list of menu items, normally from the restaurant's own website. You can get, the list of what's in their menu, the prices, and all those kinds of details. So there's no point in us presenting that to you. I also think there's no point in us just going through this list and giving a thumbs up, thumbs down, or 1 to 10 rating for each of these restaurants. But I do think there's a point in some kind of broader and deeper reflections on what we've learned in several months of, exhausting and yet self-indulgent, travel as we went from northern Thailand to Detroit, then from Detroit to Vancouver, then from Vancouver to Seattle with Nanaimo in between. We've been eating at a lot of vegan restaurants in all these places. And we've also been meeting with and talking to vegan chefs, partly for reasons that are outside of this video, but vegan chefs and cooking instructors in a couple different universities, people living and working in the food sector, and getting their perspectives on what's going on in veganism from that more commercial food services side. Okay, so the list of restaurants we're going to cover in this video. Number 1, Green Space. Number 2, Detroit Vegan Soul. Café. Chive Kitchen.
Chive Kitchen.
That's what she's here for. Seva, and then In Season. All of those are in Detroit, Michigan, USA, and I think we have a legitimate claim to reviewing every single vegan restaurant in Detroit, USA in this video, just in covering those 6 locations. And then we have 2 other restaurants that are in Ann Arbor, next door. One is just called The Lunchroom, and a new one is called VedgeCafe. That may or may not be every single vegan option in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor is not that big a city. But our former video started with a clarification. We did a video reviewing almost every restaurant in Chiang Mai, Thailand. But in this one, I think we really are legitimately covering just about every single restaurant in Detroit. Okay, Melissa, you're on deck. Take it away. What do you want to say under this heading?
Well, I know you didn't want to do just the thumbs up or thumbs down, but the restaurant that I was most impressed with, and that if you're in Detroit for a short period of time and you want to check out just one vegan restaurant or, devote your time to seeing one, would be Detroit Vegan Soul. I felt like their staff was pretty great. The food was excellent, and the location is not so great to get to. But
in Detroit, nothing has a good location. Nothing. Anyway.
But it is, authentically Detroit, and it's
every location in Detroit is a bad location.
Yeah.
I'm joking. I'm laughing, but I'm not joking.
Yeah. And we get to see, right next to it is actually a pretty nice neighborhood of Detroit, which is unlike the rest of Detroit.
What, Detroit Vegan Soul?
Yeah.
One of the things I remember with the location is that right across the street, there's a meat-based soul restaurant that's empty and looks like it's going out of business. There's another one just down the way that already went out of business, so that may be gone by the time you get there.
Yeah.
But the vitality of the one vegan restaurant is actually a real contrast to a lot of the restaurants that surround it on the same block. Yeah. There was a bookstore that was happening to them. Okay, look, I'm self-critical about this kind of thing. Do we eat there twice or 3 times? Twice, I think.
We went there twice.
Okay.
Once we went for brunch.
But let me just say, as a reviewer, some of these restaurants we went to twice, and then we really changed our opinions, the second time we went there. Detroit Vegan Soul, we do have a really positive impression of them. We literally bought the t-shirt, so we both own a t-shirt for this restaurant, Detroit Vegan Soul. But, they actually did a lot wrong. They did screw up a bunch of things that order, and there were a bunch of dishes that just didn't work. And I think, let me just say, I think you can be over the threshold where you feel positively about something, and then you're ignoring all of the negative information about it. That can happen. And the opposite can happen too, where you have a negative impression of something, and then it doesn't matter how much they get right, you know what I mean? And you're disregarding some of that information. What are you going to say?
Well, I know you hated the okra soup.
Yep.
Right? So
cool.
you told the waiter as much. And you weren't charged. Okay.
Yeah, they took it. They allegedly took it off the bill. Right.
So
I thought there was something wrong with that soup. I mean, I don't know what it was. I mean, it wasn't merely that I thought this was not to my taste. I thought it was inedible. There was something wrong.
I guess. Okay. Yeah. Downsides, which is pretty unprofessional, that vegan restaurants get away with, that I think other restaurants wouldn't, is that when you would go to order something, they would say, "Oh, we're out of this." We were there on a Saturday at like 2 p.m. This is like, you need to have everything on the menu. If you're offering it on the menu, you need to have that stuff. Like, I mean, it was like I wanted to order the breakfast sandwich, and they didn't have the veggie sausage. They're like, "Oh, we don't have veggie sausage." Then my mom wanted to order something else, and
that's right.
Like, "Oh, we're out of that." Like,
so what's your second choice and what's your third choice? Yeah. That's right. We do this in the. So it's funny it's coming up under this heading, because this is maybe the most positive review. Like, we were both very positive about Detroit Vegan Soul. We both bought the T-shirt, etc.
Yeah.
But one of the things I kept saying to you as we went from restaurant to restaurant in Detroit was, like, none of these places live up to the standards you take for granted with big mainstream brands like the Olive Garden or Red Lobster.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Subway is setting the bar pretty low. You know what I mean? Like, is this vegan restaurant up to the level? So, but if you think about that kind of mid-range American chain restaurant, I don't even know. Sorry, I'm not American. I don't live in the States, and I don't know this kind of stuff, and I don't eat meat. I've been vegan for a million years, so I've forgotten. But I think it is interesting. I mean, just what you said is very, very true. Vegan restaurants seem to get away with a lot of really unprofessional stuff.
And they charge more.
Yeah, okay.
Than those restaurants. Charge more than Red Lobster. Charge more than Olive Garden.
And what they're delivering in terms of even the place you sit and a lot of things with the experience is not at the level of an Olive Garden or some other, mainstream brand like that. Now, again, whether or not it's at the level of a Chipotle or a Subway, I think is separately kind of debatable. But yeah, I mean, I think we're kind of doing this video at really the right time, because we did these restaurant reviews, or sort of went to these restaurants and we're really reviewing them and paying attention to them and taking photographs and looking at the menu when we're applying for college, to go into food services ourselves. We're specifically interested in baking. But, this is both the ugliness and the beauty of capitalism. What is the value of a bottle of champagne? It's whatever people say it is, right? And a bottle of champagne can be worth $100, and a bottle of champagne can be worth $1,000, and a bottle of champagne can be worth $10,
Yeah.
And there may not necessarily be an objective standard or referent in terms of quality or how much you enjoy it or anything else to separate these things. But yes, sadly, on the issue of price alone, a lot of these vegan restaurants have a very fundamental lack of humility about what they're selling and what it's worth. So let's jump ahead. We can come back to praising Detroit Vegan Soul. Maybe we should wrap up by doing that, saying at the end what it is they're doing right. That'd be a nice way to end the video. Come back to Detroit Vegan Soul. Green Space was a huge disappointment. And among the things, just jump ahead, we ordered, I forget what it cost, it was $8 or something. We ordered, a potato dish. And it was potatoes on a dish. I mean, that's all it was. If your grandma served it to you, you wouldn't complain. But it was just not restaurant food. It was not up to the standard of an Olive Garden or a Chipotle or a McDonald's even. It was not at the standard of adequacy, let alone excellence. Yeah. And it was a lot of money. I mean, that meal in total cost a lot. But I got a side of one type of vegetable and of potatoes, and it was just laughable. Everything about it, the appearance, the presentation. We even had a French onion soup there. Terrible. Yeah. Terrible. Worse than amateurish. And you got to ask yourself again, if my cousin made this for me, I wouldn't even lie to my cousin's face and be like, yeah, that's a good French onion soup. I would say, look, Larry, my cousin Larry, let's say, have you really read about what French onion soup is? Have you thought about how it's supposed to taste? This doesn't taste like a French onion soup. Something you're doing wrong. I might try to talk about it with him in a constructive way. But all that stuff was not up to standard. And the prices are unforgivable. So yeah, look, I mean, it's the best of times and the worst of times for veganism in 2018. And keeping it all the way real, we just saw some counterexamples. We have seen some very modestly priced vegan places. Wouldn't you say Veggie Grill? The chain Veggie Grill is a contrast? No? Okay, that's for a different video.
I think it is also overpriced.
Okay, you think that? No, well, that's also interesting for me to hear. No, I mean, that's really interesting to hear. Because, look, I was just going to ask the question. I mean, all right, sorry, we're jumping around, but I think this is the more philosophical way to talk about this instead of just giving you a score out of 10 for each restaurant. But like, we look at baked goods as vegans, and it's like, well, this place is selling a vegan donut for $3.50. Tim Hortons is selling a normal non-vegan donut for 99 cents. Mm-hmm. What explains the gap here? Like, this is a big gap, and that's not the worst offender. We just had a vegan cake, a cake about smaller than a donut, for $12 US. We've seen others for, well, what we saw
with ice cream,
and you know, right? But I mean, this is like,
ice cream.
What is a bottle of champagne worth? You know, a cake can be worth $15 at this size. We saw a non-vegan example of that. It can be $2.99. And guys, the ingredients here, as a vegan, there is no way the cake should be more expensive. You've eliminated eggs and dairy.
Yeah.
It's not like you replace them with saffron. Sorry, saffron is the most
notably expensive spice.
You know, it's not in the ingredients cost. It's not in the labor cost. So it's the best of times, the worst times for veganism. I guess it fundamentally is a positive thing that vegan food businesses can get away with this, can get away with charging an arm and a leg for something, or reflect something positive about how veganism is perceived, or even what meat eaters are willing to pay for a vegan donut or a vegan meal. Yeah. But at the end of the day, green space in Detroit, I give you a 0 out of 10. I give you 0. You know, and again, the French onion soup is part of it and everything else. But I don't know how any restaurateur, I don't know any professional in the industry, or even the waiter, can look at that plate of potatoes and think, yeah, this is worth.
I'm proud to serve this. Right?
Think. I mean, you know, if this was $1.99.
The owner was actually there that day.
Right.
He walked by our table. You didn't know that he was the owner, but you know, he was walking up to people at the tables, and you know, so he was there supervising. He was there working. And watching what was being served. And, you know, this is what he endorses. And it's, you know, Green Space I was really excited about. It opened up after I went vegan, and it was supposed to be like a 100% heart-healthy place because it was opened by Dr. Joel Kahn.
And this Joel Kahn, he's definitely a local celebrity. I don't know if he's a coast-to-coast nationwide celebrity.
Yeah.
He's published some books. He's to some extent famous, yeah.
Sure, yeah. But, you know, going this time, you know, I did go when it first opened, and I was fairly impressed. Yeah. But it was overpriced from the get-go, you know, it was overpriced, but I thought it was because it was, you know, superfoods, like organic, all local, so I kind of justified the price, and I didn't get that much. But this time, you know, what we ordered was not heart-healthy. Yeah. The French onion soup wasn't, you know, it wasn't healthy, it wasn't raw, you know, like, you know,
sure.
A lot of restaurants
it was just oil and water.
Yeah.
You know, ultimately, yeah.
The blackened tempeh was pretty good, but, like, yeah, anyway, well, the potatoes were not.
I mean, I guess it is a good sign for veganism as a movement. A place like that from my perspective, is a failure, like, in terms of cuisine. I mean, the only good thing I could say about that place, I mean, if you want a place to get drunk, you know, they're serving alcohol. Like, I don't drink alcohol at all.
Yeah, me
like,
neither.
There were people using it as a bar and a social space. That would be the only thing I'd recommend. Is okay, well, it's a place rather than somewhere else to get drunk or to socialize with people you already know. You're not going to make any new friends there, God knows. You could choose that. But in terms of cuisine, the place is to me obviously a failure, and even obviously a disaster. Like, they need to call in a chef to do an evaluation and consultation and figure out how to make. But they're not failing economically. Not only are they successful, they're opening new branches. They were expanding. Yeah. Right? Yeah. They were expanding at least one new location. Yep. And you know, you could see they were busy at all hours and so on. So, you know, again, that's interesting. As a vegan, obviously, I'm happy to see other vegans succeed. Yeah. This is parallel, though, to my kind of anxiety about a lot of the new vegan products we saw in the grocery store. Obviously, that could be another video or what have you. Detroit had so many vegan products on display in the case, you know, at the grocery store with vegan on the label and so on. Okay, sometimes they said plant-based, but very often marketed as vegan. Yeah. But, oh my God, I mean, a lot of it is awful. A lot of it, and it's not just like you taste it like, oh, this isn't to my taste, or I'd like this if it were salty or something. a lot of it is like I taste it and I say to you, I can't believe the investors ever sat down
Yeah.
at an investor meeting and said, yeah, we're going to put
This
$1 million.
is worth
It just seems to me mind-blowing, inedibly awful, and of course overpriced, expensive as hell. So, you know, shout out to cashew yogurt. Shout out to Kite Hill almond
Forager
glop.
brand cashew yogurt.
Very
unforgivable how bad that is, and it's so expensive. You know, it was labeled
so expensive, and it's a false luxury. I mean, you're paying for something.
It looks so fabulous, and you know, you're expecting something great for that price, and it's just so disappointing.
Right. We also see this in a funny comparative perspective. I was just saying this to one of the professors of cuisine we talked to. Mm-hmm. We've been flying back and forth to Asia. We've been flying back and forth to Europe. So we see the stuff going on in America in a comparative light. And I mean, some of the things on the American scene are good or positive. I mean, you know, a lot of the heat and action in the vegan restaurant business right now, I'd say, is in soul food or comfort food, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. That's really an American thing. That's not what's going on in Europe. Yeah. So, you know, if you want an okay vegan hamburger and French fries, there's a lot of that going on. That's more positive than it is negative. I mean, that's probably with a lot of these restaurants, if you haven't been to them before, that's maybe the only thing you can get that's reliably not going to be awful, right? And some of it's based on the Beyond Burger or other recognized brands of fake meat. Yeah, that's the difference from Europe. But on the other hand, in Europe, some things are being done, I think, technically correctly. Yeah, you know, like soy yogurt. And it just cannot be had in America at any price. Yeah, but I will just say, the Whole Foods in the Detroit area that we went to had like in their deli area, in their deli case, they had quite a few vegan options that were really good. But we just went to the Whole Foods in Seattle, and we did not see as many options. So that was really surprising to me. I expected Seattle to be like more of a vegan haven than Detroit, but apparently not. It's a little bit weird, but Detroit has appeared in a number of articles. There was one article that was called the 10 best cities to live in as a vegan. Yeah. And Detroit was in that list. But there were other articles that weren't a top 10 list. They were just talking about the cities where veganism is really happening. And again, this one restaurant, Detroit Vegan Soul, is part of the hype for that. So is Green Space. But we did see that in the supermarkets of Detroit. We went to many different supermarkets, and we did see a lot of vegan action. So another big thing. Oh, sorry, I know you got things. I got things to say too. You can jump in after this. Yeah. But take it in direction. I want to take a bit. I think it's interesting when you look at the generational change between the vegan restaurants. Like, I mean, something like Green Space and Detroit Vegan Soul. Those are really the new generation. They're the now 2018 generation. The current approach to being vegan restaurateurs. We see this everywhere we go. You see it also in the vegan bakeries. Like, you know, you go to a place that was started in the 1980s. They have a different idea about vegetarianism or veganism, different idea about the diet and health and what the products are and how they're presented. There are really different assumptions built into the business that are evident on the plate, and even literally, like, they're evident in the arrangement of the tables and stuff. It sounds ridiculous, but a 1980s vegan cafe that's downstairs from a yoga studio, that's a real example, is very different from a place that started up in 2015.
From hippie to hipster.
Right, yes. That is true. Yeah. Well, another thing is, are you making food for hipsters, or are you making it for the whole family? Or any of these places where parents would take their kids. That's kind of a weird gap in the market in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot in our vegan tour of
so
these cities.
But Detroit,
good. So in Detroit area, I think it's probably In Season. Yep. Was started in late 70s or
I think they hold the record as the oldest continuous vegetarian restaurant.
So In Season was my favorite.
They're mostly vegan, but they have a few vegetarian things. Is that the case?
They do have So they're not 100% vegan. That's right. Yeah.
Which again reflects that generation. I mean, back then there was a time when the word vegan wasn't used. We just talked about vegetarian and strictly vegetarian.
Right. So I like In Season because of the hominess of it. There's soundproofing on the ceiling, so it's you are able to have a conversation. You know, like we took my parents when we first met Isel, and it was really
when they first met me. She'd known me for a while, but when I went to meet her parents, right?
Yeah, when they first met Isel, we went to In Season, and it was a nice place to have a conversation. Yep. You know, free refills on coffee, and you know, like pretty affordable. I
Yep.
think in season is just generally. I like the staff
Right.
too, and
There are a lot of things
you
like-
said too much of the coming around being like, hey, how's
Yes,
your food? Like
sure,
too much of this
sure,
interaction
sure,
between
sure.
waiter and customer. But so yeah, in season and also Café. Those
Right.
are two that are like old school style restaurants that were originally vegetarian, and they are still vegetarian, but offer mostly vegan options.
The majority of what they got on the menu is now vegan.
But
So I have very different. These two places, In Season and Café.
Mm-hmm.
I was much more positive about the food at Café. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's just my honest feeling. With In Season, I liked a lot of things, but I liked it as a place to have coffee. I liked it as a place to have dessert, and I liked it as a place to have conversation.
Yeah,
You said the desserts, I'm basically very positive about there.
Mm-hmm.
And I like. I mean, it is this kind of out of date ambiance, but that's cool. It's a nice place to hang. However, I felt the food was painfully unsophisticated. Right?
Yeah.
And like to me, again, I'm not as much of a snob as you might think from this comment. But I just said green space. You buy the French onion soup. It does not taste like French onion soup. I'm sorry, there is a textbook definition of what that dish is supposed to taste like, right? At In Season, they served a minestrone soup. It wasn't horrible, but it was not a minestrone soup. It was just a completely different. It was just whatever vegetable soup they felt.
Yeah.
It was a miscellaneous vegan soup with a bunch of peas and carrots in it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I will just say it's funny. It was funny to see how my perception was different after having been around the world. Seeing like vegan places in Chiang Mai, in Pattaya, Jomtien area, in France,
In China too.
in China, in Beijing. Yeah, so after...
That's right. So Beijing's a country. I was thinking of the one vegan restaurant in Nangsha, Dahong. But anyway,
yes.
But you also, that's right, we also did a vegan restaurant tour of Beijing.
Right, so after having, become a bit more cosmopolitan, my perception of In Season was, I was a little like, I don't know.
Look, minestrone is not an English word. And it's a foreign word.
Yeah.
I think it is true. Anybody can do cake and coffee, which is great. We need more vegan places competing with Starbucks and doing cake and coffee. But yeah, really delivering on some of those other things, like minestrone soup, is actually not that easy.
Yeah.
And to do it day after day, at a good level of quality and consistency and so on.
But it is good to think about these things as far as, I don't think we'll be restaurant owners, but just seeing about the vegan scene, like what is the future of the places that were built in the 70s? Like how are they going to keep up with the new hip places that are opening?
Well, I mean, I think there were a few things there. One, can you live up to the expectation in 2018 in terms of sophistication of food? Like, what is minestrone soup, or what is anything, what have you. Another question is, can you keep up with the expectations in terms of the healthiness of food? Because you and I both, we do pretty much make an exception for any food if it's really healthy. But the vast majority of what we've been eating in these restaurants, and we both regret it, too.
Yeah.
It's not health food. It's vegan food, but it's not health food. Like, if what we were eating really consisted of salad and broccoli and, I don't know, legumes or something, I would feel much more positive about it. It's easy for me to give a positive review to some of the Mexican places, Mexican restaurants, because sometimes that is what you're getting. You're getting a bunch of vegetables and beans and what have you. So can you really deliver on, or can you meet a high enough standard for really legit healthy food?
Yeah.
Not many are. And then, finally beyond that, when it's not health food, are you making something that's, a so-called peak experience or fabulous? Like, ultimately you have to compete with the grocery store. Here in America, in the United States, you've got Trader Joe's. You can get prepared vegan desserts at Trader Joe's. Are you presenting food that competes with that?
Yep. Too? Yep. Yeah, I know we're not doing, like thumbs up, thumbs down, but what was the winner at In Season, and not getting too much into specifics, was the stir fry that just had a bunch of vegetables with rice, and it's, wasn't sophisticated, it wasn't
simplicity and genuinely healthy.
Yeah.
And then for both of us, we're just satisfied much more easily because of that, because it's really healthy. And for them, they're not attempting to do something they don't really know how to do or they can't pull off in the kitchen. So likewise, Café, which I won't say too much about, what won my heart there was just straight up Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
You know, green vegetables on a plate with a sauce. And I was like, damn, this is actually, of course, it's actually healthy and actually fun. I wish I could have that again tonight. You know what I mean? I thought they just did a really good plate of Brussels sprouts. Maybe everything else was not so great, but
I just want to express my disappointment with macaroni and cheese and how it's impossible to make vegan and good vegan. Like, I see people lauding vegan mac and cheese on, like, Facebook groups, and it's like,
right?
No, you know this is not that good. Like,
none of it lives up to expectations.
Yeah, like the reviews for the mac and cheese at Café were like, oh, you gotta try it. I got it, and I was just, you know, really disappointed.
Right.
Everywhere that I've tried it, you know, like,
Vegan mac and cheese is greasy yellow pasta. That's what it is.
Right.
Okay.
I know. Like, it just, cheese is not gonna be our forte. Like, stop trying to make vegan cheese.
Stop trying to make...
It's not happening, Karen. Like,
yeah, I know what you're over there. But something else that is easy and doesn't rely on cheese so much, you know, the two people sitting across the table from us, it's a table of 4, they had vegan tacos.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are so many things that easily came. I thought they were very good. I don't know if it's excellent, but, you know, I thought there were a lot of things. Café is a small kitchen. So, look, hey, one other thing to mention here that struck me at Café, because Café is just kind of marketed as a hippie place. Detroit Vegan Soul is explicitly linked to African American culture and the African American experience.
It's owned by African Americans.
Yeah, we met her. I think we met the owner.
Yeah, we met the owner.
Yeah, but you know, both of those places, about 50% of the staff were black. Were African American. And depending on when you were there, maybe 50% of the customers were too. You know, obviously not going to be exactly. So Detroit is one of the few places in the world where, at least on the surface, it does seem like a really large percentage of vegans and even full-time professional vegans in the food industry are black, are African American. So, I mean, that's a contrast. I think you will not see that going to vegan cafes in California or many other places, you know. And a lot of vegans, I've known them on the internet too, but you can read plenty of blogs about that, about the feeling of being a minority within a minority as being an African-American vegan.
Yeah, no, that's
something.
an interesting point.
So
I hadn't really thought about that, but I mean, not to be like, I don't want to sound... Well, anyway, just being here in Seattle, like, I think most of the restaurants we've been to, like the vegan places,
are
white people.
I don't think we've seen a single African-American.
It was not the case in Detroit. It's just what I grew up with, so I didn't even think.
That is true. I think in Seattle we haven't seen a single African-American in a single vegan restaurant. And
pretty strange.
Whether or not we did in Vancouver is also debatable. And we took one African American with us. We had African Canadian. Right. Sorry, Quest is Canadian, but he's black. So we were with him. But no, so that is a big contrast with Detroit, and maybe that's part of why Detroit seems to have something special to offer, something unique and interesting going on. Okay, so some of these others, what would you say about Chive Kitchen? Because I think we've kind of already established all the different criteria we're thinking about here.
Chive Kitchen is like terribly unhealthy. Like, that's their shtick. Like, they're known for like chili cheese fries and
right. So that's again
Reuben
vegan
sandwiches, like
vegan
typical American comfort food, and it's not great. I'm sorry. It's like, you know, it has to be worth the calories if you're gonna do it, and I was disappointed with it. I had it before, and I felt like this time that I went like 2 years before this, and I felt like the portions had gotten smaller, the quality of food had declined. We've seen that with a few places too after they've been open for a while. That things start to wind down. But it's not in Detroit. You know, it's
Chive Kitchen's in the suburbs. Greater Detroit area, whatever.
Yeah.
Every vegan restaurant in the Greater Detroit area. Anyway, you know, again, I think that's that fundamental thing. When what you're serving really is health food, we have lower standards, and when it's not, well, what is this about? Anyway, I don't know. When we went to Chive Kitchen, again, this is massively successful. Line up out the door. Yep. It was freezing cold. So people waiting, huddled in the doorway and on the sidewalk outside of the restaurant. And we were there early, too. It wasn't even prime time when we first got there. That was when it was, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And, you know, places slammed. And they were only busier as the night went on. Yep. And obviously a very small minority of their customers are actually vegan. So they're capturing something in the zeitgeist. There's something going on they're capturing in a bottle of some kind of public interest. I wouldn't say the food there was terrible, But it's just, you can't justify it in terms of the calories you're eating. You can't justify it in terms of the price you're paying.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I basically have nothing good to say about it.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, anyway, it's funny. I mean, you know, some people talk about, you know, the function of a restaurant being a peak experience, being part of the gift economy, which it was for us because we took out your family, members of your extended family too, to Chive Kitchen, where it's about taking someone and showing them a special time or what have you.
Right. Having my aunts and uncles eat at a vegan place.
Right, and this
that was
didn't
basically most of the.
And this did not raise to that level. This was not at the same level. This was not as good as taking them to an Olive Garden. That's just people want, you know, or any of those big chains like that. You know,
and that's another thing to talk about. That vegan places get away with having tiny areas for dining. Like,
yes, true.
Not enough seating.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
that was the situation.
If that's what it's about. If that's what it's about. If that's what it's about, is kind of the gift economy and a peak experience and a special night out. Yeah. If that's what you're providing, that's one thing. And then the other hand, I mean, you can have vegan places that are more like Starbucks or more like McDonald's or more like Tim Hortons, where it's not a special place. It's just a place to get fed and get back to work.
Yeah.
Obviously, I totally appreciate that. But then again, they have to be priced in a way that's actually competitive with Tim Hortons.
That's what I dig about Veggie Roll here.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. But anyway, I think Chive Kitchen. I'm not going to say anything else bad about it, but that to me is an interesting example of a place that doesn't kind of win under column A and doesn't win under column B.
Probably also a good place to get drunk, but you know, I'm not interested in that. But
that's true. A lot of people are drinking alcohol there. That is true. Yeah. And the other thing to remember is they are massively successful. So we can sit here and say their food is crap, and it kind of is, but people are literally lined up.
People are lining up. Yeah.
Obviously, they're going to keep doing what they're doing, and other new businesses are going to open and copy it.
Yep.
So, look, I mean, I don't know. When do we hit peak veganism? When does the bubble burst? And so on. You know, I mean, that happens. It happens to them. I mean, when, in my childhood, it happened with the comic book industry. There was a time when people were buying up comic books, and the prices kept going up, and people thought, oh, all these comic books are going to be worth, you know, $100. You know, the price is going to appreciate. Then people figure out, no, come on. This is a worthless mass-produced art. I don't know. I mean, at some point, you know, we talked about this a lot with baking. How is it possible to charge $6.99 for a loaf of bread? How is it possible to charge, you know, $7 and $8 for a vegan cupcake? You know, I don't know. But at some point, people have to recognize, just like comic books, ultimately the paper is not worth that much. You know, sugar and wheat are just not worth that much. All right. Seva. So you've known Seva for a relatively long time. Seva is vegetarian, right?
It's vegetarian, yeah.
And again, about half the menu is now vegan, no?
Yeah. So we only went there we had soup, I think, and yeah.
Oh, and dessert, right? No, and I had their famous dish. I had their cauliflower dish.
Oh yeah, the cauliflower.
So we had a
bites.
few things. Right.
Yeah, those are their thing.
Right, that's what
deep fried cauliflower with spicy Asian sauce, and I think they were okay.
Yeah.
What we had this time.
Yeah.
I was impressed with them the last time I had it. I guess last April, I think it was. Before I moved to China.
Yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of these places probably, I mean, I don't think this really impacts your bottom line. But look, okay, I'm going to do a comparison. Seva in Detroit as opposed to JJ Bean in Vancouver. So JJ Bean is a very humble coffee shop. They're in competition with, you know, Starbucks. But just the fact that they give you a side salad and make a meal out of it. You know what I mean? So some of these places also, like you say, so we had the same experience with a vegan pizza place. We went to an all-vegan pizza place where it's like, well, you're giving me this one item on a dish.
Yeah.
You know, could some effort be made to make a meal out of it? And no, I my overall impression with Seva was negative. Their famous vegan dish is exactly what you mentioned. It's taking cauliflower, putting it in a deep fryer, putting it on a plate, and putting a sauce on it.
Yep.
That's the whole thing. There's nothing else to it.
That's the thing.
So, you know, I don't know if there was a soup and a salad or something else involved, if it was part of a meal, maybe I'd feel more positive about it. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's the same thing with the fake meat attraction within veganism. When we move past this being a stunt, like, oh, I can't believe this isn't real duck meat. I can't believe this isn't real chicken. I can't believe this isn't real beef.
Yeah.
Then, you know, you start to look at, well, okay, yeah, but am I actually having a meal? You know what I mean? Is this is this just a stunt or is there more to it?
Yeah, I feel like it's overpriced for what you get to.
That is true. I would give Seva the thumbs down, but it does not get the kind of resounding negative review from me that Green Space does, TBH.
Yeah.
Okay.
Alright, so the other two are in Ann Arbor.
Right.
So this is a different town.
So Ann Arbor is just down the street from Detroit. They're like sister cities at this point.
Yeah.
Because the university connection between them.
Right. So the restaurants we went to, Lunchroom and VedgeCafe.
These are at opposite extremes of the vegan experience because Lunchroom is high end in terms of its prices. I mean, you get to sit on a
also lined out the door. It was lunchtime on a
absurdly successful.
Thursday or I don't know. It was the middle of the week.
Absurdly successful. They are absolutely at capacity and above capacity 7 days a week. Every meal they're open for.
I was really disappointed in their tiramisu. It was way too sugary.
Yes, tiramisu was garbage. You were disappointed with the mains too that you had, as a matter of fact. I mean, you weren't weeping, but you were disappointed.
I think I just ate too much, so I was like, God, I'm never eating again.
No, I mean, I remember your reaction at the time. But I mean, so that place is insanely successful. They're I just feel they're kind of charging gourmet prices for non-gourmet food, which is a common thing. And you don't really even get to sit in a proper restaurant. You know, it is more like sitting in a Starbucks. You don't really get waiter service or table service.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, that's an approach, but again, the prices are just too high. But that is you're paying as if that were gourmet food. Whereas the contrast, VedgeCafe is this totally unpretentious, like fast food joint that I thought had really sophisticated food.
Yeah.
We had a vegan chili cheesesteak.
Philly cheesesteak. Yeah.
Vegan Philly cheesesteak sandwich at VedgeCafe in Ann Arbor. And, you know, I really thought that was a very sophisticated, very well executed.
I know, I was surprised.
It's one of the best vegan dishes I've had in my life, period. I really thought it was done very well. Not health food, but fabulous. You know, and it made me, obviously they do salads and some other stuff there.
Yeah.
That's healthy.
The smoothie we got was meh.
Yeah, that's true. The smoothie was just so-so. Was just memo hoo-hoo. But anyway, but that's a really cheap, you know, unpretentious kind of place. And the lunchroom, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's a bit mysterious. I have complained to you repeatedly about so-called Mexican food places where nobody involved is Mexican. Yeah. You know, and
we got the Mexican burrito.
Right. A lot of their stuff in the menu, though, is Mexican.
Yeah, some of it's like Thai dishes, too, you know.
Yes, right. You're taking a risk. I mean, you're taking a risk. Do you really know Mexican food if you're the restaurateur? Do you really know Thai food?
Yeah.
Are you really going to do this? I mean, again, like, you can ask, is this as good as the Olive Garden? But, you know, is this really competitive with, is this comparable to what you'd get at a decent Thai restaurant or a decent Mexican restaurant for the corresponding, you know, types of dishes? And if not, you know, what are you doing here? What are you competing with?
Yeah, and I will just say they're also massively successful. Lunchroom, they opened a restaurant right down the street called Detroit Filling Station, which we didn't go to, and then another location for that place, which is a little bit further out of town. So yeah, they're doing very well. And they don't have much competition as far as vegan places in Ann Arbor. There was one place I went to when I first went vegan, I guess 2.5 years ago now, and we walked by the location and it's now totally closed. And I think because it was like a mostly raw food place, it didn't last, which is kind of how it goes.
Right. And look, I don't know, like, I guess the real question, the real area of market research to understand this is to look at who are the meat eaters who eat at vegan restaurants, because they're obviously the ones driving success.
Yep.
You know, what are they wanting? What are they finding in these places?
Yep.
And, you know, okay, look, Detroit Vegan Soul, where I said, let's end with it. You know, what is so positive? What is it Detroit Vegan Soul is getting right? Why don't you say from your perspective? Because I think I do have a perspective on this.
Yeah, I think people are proud to see a new hip restaurant run by black people in the middle of Detroit be successful. I think, you know, people are proud to see a place doing well like this.
Okay, you say that we walked by a restaurant tonight, a meat-based restaurant, and it had written on the front door, "We make people feel good about their bad habits."
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a hook for a lot of this vegan soul food, vegan comfort food, is we make you feel good about your bed habits. We're selling you something that's probably objectively unhealthy, but it's vegan, you know, and it's vegan and it's organic, and we're offering to kind of make you feel good
My dish was not
about your bed habits. Right, you know, whatever, it's a vegan roast beef, or it's, you know, it's something like this, you know, where it's not health food within the vegan column, but because it's vegan, you're getting interest from outside media.
Yeah, but I will just say, you know, Detroit has gone through a terrible economic time. I mean, it's been it's been in dire straits for years and years. So, you know, recently there's been a resurgence of hope about the city of Detroit. So I think this is kind of adding to the hype that there's something vegan, something new.
Right.
Something that is claiming to be healthy.
So it's part of a narrative about soul food in African American culture. It's part of a narrative about Detroit and Detroit emerging from the ashes and revival of a unique Detroit culture. I think it's also part of a narrative about making people feel good about their bad habits. You know, which again, it's something I think many vegan categories can cash in on. Like, oh hey, don't eat a cupcake. Eat a vegan cupcake. Now, I mean, like, honestly, how healthy is a vegan cupcake?
Yeah.
It's true. It doesn't have eggs in it. It doesn't have dairy in it. There is a difference between a non-vegan cupcake. But still, a lot of this stuff is really not healthy. I think the other thing lurking in the background here is, could I make this better at home? Or could I make this just as well at home?
Yeah.
And a lot of the places we've eaten, I'm not even thinking about Detroit, so we've been going to a lot of restaurants that we eat, and it's like, well, this was okay. I've heard you say that, even like, but you could actually make the specific dish better at home. I mean, vegan pizza, when you really think about it, pizza is the worst. Of course you can make a better vegan pizza. Do you want to? How lazy are you? You know, like when you think about the ingredients, like, okay, yeah, you know, red sauce, you know, vegan cheese, whatever. You know, there's not that much to it. I think, you know, what makes Detroit Vegan Soul stand out above all else, there's a lot of food there I cannot make at home.
Totally agree. Yeah.
And the last time I went there, the second time, I did order an actually healthy meal. One of their options is just to get 3 different types of greens, 3 different types of grilled vegetables, basically. And I did that as the back of my meal. It was fabulous. So I had something like...
I know you had broccoli.
Yeah, broccoli, but something like fiddleheads, collard greens.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that. You know, so I had a whole plate of bitter green vegetables, which I love. For me, that's a fabulous meal. I mean, that alone. Again, I was over a certain threshold where I regarded the whole restaurant really positively, even though they did actually do some things wrong and screw some things up. Yeah. You know, but yeah, even that, even my greens, the simpler thing I ordered, that's not something I could or would, you know, make at home. And, I mean, I can make broccoli, don't get me wrong. But, you know, just saying the actual details of what I had.
I would not be able to make what I ordered there the second time. Or the first time, because the first time was a breakfast sandwich with, like, this veggie sausage, and I don't know how they did it. The second time, I ordered something with, like, coconut bacon and, like, faux chicken. You know, like, I don't know how to do it. And I'm not willing to put in the effort for that at home. So, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's the other thing lurking in the background here. Are you offering people, whether they're vegans or meat eaters, whether or not it's fabulous, but something really different from what they can get at home? And, yeah, what can I tell you? The future is not going to be vegan restaurants that fail to live up to the standards set by Olive Garden. I just got to say, I think, you know, in terms of front of house service and in so many fundamental things, we've got to start, you know, meeting those standards. You remember we went to one restaurant in Thailand where they actually said if anything isn't good enough, you get a refund, you know, say at the front of the That's one attitude that's interesting. There's another restaurant here in Seattle that says anything on your plate that you don't finish, we charge you double for. So if you order something you didn't like it, you're guilty of wasting food and you're punished for it. So there are a lot of different kind of cultural responses to this.
Yeah.
But I think also, you know, I mean, I guess one attitude I bring to this that's maybe a little bit alien to a lot of other people in the game, just when I say, look, there's a way minestrone soup is supposed to taste. This is not minestrone. There's a way French onion soup is supposed to taste. Most of these vegan foods and dishes, they're in this totally new territory where neither the people making them nor the audience have a preconceived set of expectations of what this is supposed to taste like, right?
Yeah.
So it's a new enough dish or it's a new enough category of dishes that you were stumbling blind.
Or just
don't have those kinds of standards.
Unique to the people. Like, tempeh is, I'm sure, a traditional dish for some
Indonesians,
culture,
right. Sure.
But a lot of people that are just going vegan or trying something vegan, they have never had tempeh before. So, yeah, they don't know what to expect. But
I mean, these are easy problems to solve. I think everyone in cuisine has to do this. Tempeh is a great ingredient. Now, how do you sell me a whole meal that involves tempeh that really works? You know what I mean? It can't be. And I think we had this at Green Space. Wherever we ordered tempeh there.
Yeah.
And it was just a white plate. And again, talk about I could make it better at home.
Yeah.
It was just tempeh taken out of a plastic packet, cut, and put on that white plate. Thanks. You know, this is not. Really? This is not. Yeah, it was that bad. And again, Green Space gets a 0 out of 10 from me. Yeah. But yeah, that's that's a creative challenge for the people in the restaurant, and the pricing and the costing and the total package of the experience you're getting. Okay, guys, so that is it. That is a review of every single vegan restaurant in both Detroit and Ann Arbor, with what I hope are some useful reflections on, I don't know, past, present, and future of what's going on in vegan cuisine. We definitely see, again and again, in each city we go to, this big gulf between vegan restaurants and bakeries started in the 1980s, in the 1990s, in the 2000s, and then just in the last couple of years. And
we also see warning signs for what's going to survive. In Vancouver, or here, you see something online and be like, oh, okay, where is that located? And then when you look it up, it's like, oh, it's permanently closed. They've already gone out of business.
Right.
So,
So that's, I mean, in business school, that's the most important thing to emphasize to people. When you're walking down the street, you think you're seeing both success and failure in terms of the restaurants or whatever businesses you're talking about. No, you're only seeing success. Even the places that look like failure, if they're still in business, they're still there to be seen, right?
Yep.
You're not seeing all the ones that closed down. So no, and that would be interesting to know more about, the broken hearts and the businesses that didn't make it, whether in Detroit or elsewhere. Yeah. But sure, I mean, right now it seems to be the high tide for the vegan diet. And it's doubtless partly because of the mainstream media. It's people like Oprah herself. Oprah did a thing where her whole office became vegan for a month or something, So I mean, mainstream TV like Oprah Winfrey has pushed this idea. And in the same sense, there were people. Look, when I first met my girlfriend, she'd never had Indian food. So I think most people are aware if they've never had Indian food at some point in their life, they should try it and show some interest in Indian cuisine. Vegan is emerging as a category of cuisine, like Indian food in that sense. The problem is veganism is an ethical and political and ecological movement, and it's not a cuisine. It's not one. I mean, like, even just contrast, Green Space, Detroit Vegan Soul, these don't represent us. Or we just recently went there. Of course, there's Chinese vegan food and Indian vegan food and so on and so forth. So nobody quite knows what to expect. Nobody knows what the finish line is, or nobody knows where the goalposts are. And, as shallow and stupid as it may be, one of the lessons I'm trying to put in here is, guys, if you're vegan, be honest with yourself. Go to an Olive Garden, or even go to some successful mainstream restaurant and really break it down. What are the expectations that customers are bringing to your restaurant, which can include even just the fact of getting a complete meal. Because a lot of the time, you've got to offer enough protein. You've got to offer enough greens. You've got to offer enough of a mix there. Yeah. And if it's about social space, you've got to offer enough social space. There are all these different criteria.
Also, like, who is your target audience? And,
yes.
You mentioned earlier in this video that, none of these places seem to be fit for bringing your kids. So, I mean, if you're only targeting hipsters, how much money are you actually going to make? And,
Right. Like, are you just feeding hipsters? Are you just feeding people who are so wealthy that they don't know the difference between $6 for a chocolate cake and $12 for one serving, not for a whole cake, for one little cup of chocolate cake? Because that exists. There are people that wealthy, and there are hipsters. There are vegan hipsters who will come and hang out. But yeah, it made me wonder. I said to you at one point, I wonder when we're going to see the first vegan restaurant with a children's play area, like a McDonald's play area with plastic balls. There are all these other categories. Are you actually making a place where these other people can get fed?
Yeah,
you know?
like I just remember. Sorry, I don't mean to go on too long, but like I just remember at the lunchroom we sat next. A person sat next to us, a woman with 2 kids, and I just saw her kind of struggling with the seating and with trying to feed both her kids,
right.
and like what to get for them. They did have like a plain sausage available on the kids menu, vegan sausage, of course. But yeah, just seeing that, I just kind of was like, oh, this is not kid friendly, and like.
Who's going to do the vegan Happy Meal, Miss?
Yeah.
It's a question, Yeah. So there are a lot of challenges out there. But, I mean, probably the fatal flaw here, what's really amateurish, is that most of these dishes are beginning from a concept. That's always a sign of an amateur. Oh, I'm going to take cauliflower and make it taste like buffalo chicken wings. Okay, but you're not thinking about it from the customer's perspective. I'm here, I want to get a full meal, and I want it to cost less than $30. You know what I mean? You're not looking at the phase of the process. You've just got this concept, and it's a stunt. Oh wow, this tastes almost like real meat. This tastes almost like that. Okay, fine. When the novelty has worn off, in terms of what's really going to be durable and what's really nutritious, right. These are the other questions going into. Okay, guys. I'm on Patreon. You just Google my name and find. I can give you the link below, whatever. If you guys want to talk to me, if you want to carry this conversation forward, we do live streaming, we do YouTube, we do it all. Hit me up.